For many, New Year's Eve is a time for drinking and partying, which frequently makes New Year's Day a time for dealing with a hangover. For other, New Year's is a time for making resolutions or promises to ourselves to be better. I rarely drink, so hangovers are not a problem for me. I also do not make New Year's resolutions, not because I don't think there are ways I can be better, but because I don't wait until the new year to act on them. That said, a new year is a good time to look at where we are and make plans for the future. So we'll do that next on the Constitution Study.
Love the neighbors and have a few good friends. Every day we're everyday Americans. Oh, every day we're everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution. Teach, rise, and generation be free. I'm glad you could join me today. You know, it's the holiday season. We've got Christmas is behind us. New Year is coming. I think it's a good time to take a moment and pause and consider. What can we learn from last year, and how can we use that in the year coming? So do that with me, if you will. I'll talk a bit more about my plans for the website and whatever at the end of the episode. But for now, let's talk about New Year. However you celebrate the holiday, I wish you a safe and enjoyable time. I also hope you'll take some time to consider the year that is past and make plans for the year to come. After all, 2024 has been quite a year. Let's start with some highlights from that year. Remember back in January when a handful of states attempted to keep Donald Trump off the ballot, claiming that he had participated in an insurrection simply because they called the January 6th demonstration an insurrection. They seemed to ignore then President Trump's admonition to the crowd to peacefully and patriotically demonstrate their displeasure with how the election was conducted. Maine showed their general ignorance of the Constitution and their willingness to throw away the Republic as they attempted to join the Interstate Compact to elect the President of the United States by national popular vote. As usual, the Supreme Court handled several cases worth remembering. One of the most memorable was Trump versus United States, when Donald Trump claimed presidential immunity in an attempt to counter the questionable legal charges against him. In this case, the Supreme Court noted that there is not a presidential immunity clause in the Constitution, then claimed that the president did have some limited immunity. If that confuses you, that's probably a good thing. There were several cases that restricted the overreach of federal agencies. In Louisiana et al. V. U.S. Department of Energy, the court found that the Department of Energy did not have the statutory authority to regulate water usage in whatever way they wanted. Then there was a case of USDA versus Kurtz, where the question of sovereign immunity was brought before the court. This was followed by Loper Bright Enterprises et al. V. Raimondo, Secretary of Commerce et al., where the court overturned a 40-year precedent known as the Chevron Doctrine that illegally granted deference to executive agencies in direct opposition to federal law. And let's not forget Security and Exchange Commission versus Jarsky et al., where the court said the SEC could not use their administrative courts to deprive people of their right to a trial by jury. Not only did Congress continue to spend millions of dollars they did not have, but some of their acts are worthy of remembering. We had the CHIPS Act, which spent billions of dollars to help redirect chip manufacturers to build new plants while they then shut down others. Then there was a TikTok ban. Did Congress have the authority to tell private companies what apps they could provide on their equipment? Was there a better way to deal with people's concerns about communist Chinese control of that platform? Then there was House Amendment 876, a proposed amendment to the infamous Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Some claim that this amendment to enforce the Constitution's protections against unreasonable search and seizure is itself unconstitutional, a position apparently held by President Biden. Oh, and let's not forget the political investigations held in both houses. Then there was Joe Biden's pardon of Hunter Biden. I put pardon in quotes because while part of the document is a pardon of Mr. Biden's son for crimes he was guilty of, there was some controversy over the expansion into what should be called grants of immunity for crimes he may have committed. Don't let that distract you from the hundreds of billions of dollars sent to Ukraine to help them fight their war against Russia and pushing the transgender agenda on our schools. Now, while none of us can know the future, contemplating the future, well, it's a fun way to pass the time. Now, shortly after the new year, Donald Trump will become only the second person to hold 2 non-consecutive terms as president. Even considering how few people have held the office, that's still quite a distinction. Mr. Trump has made many promises to the American people about what he will do with this opportunity, and based on his proposed appointments, he may even keep some of them. There are several cases that have been heard and will be decided this year. The Supreme Court's term finishes at the end of June, and that's when they tend to release their opinions of the most controversial cases. San Francisco versus EPA looks at the limits of the agency's power to interpret the law. Garland versus Vanderstock looks at the powers of the ATF to reclassify personally manufactured firearms. And the United States versus Scametti is a challenge to Tennessee's law prohibiting transgender treatments for minors. Some states, most notably California, have been putting policies in place to prevent the Trump administration from enforcing federal immigration law, protecting abortions, and generally getting in the way. As I said, I don't make New Year's resolutions, but I know many people who do. So here are some ideas you may want to consider adding to your list. Since this is the Constitution study, resolving to study the supreme law of the land should be expected. Whether you read the document online, read a book, take a class, or follow other content on the internet, knowing the supreme law of the land has plenty of benefits. I'm sure at some point in the year ahead, one of your elected representatives will screw something up. They will vote for some unconstitutional legislation, promote some unconstitutional policy, or do something in violation of their oath of office. Call them up on it. Write a letter, or better yet, visit their office and point out their mistake and the fact that you'll remember it. If your elected official is a good one, they will learn from the experience. If not, then it's time to start looking for someone better. But pledge to yourself that when you see an unconstitutional act, regardless of what government they are in, you'll stand up to point out the mistake to your employee. The odds are that someone will enact or enforce some policy that will violate your rights. Don't take it sitting down. Do your research, put together a sound argument, and then stand up and defend your rights. Maybe you can get some of your neighbors to join you. I've had people reach out for help putting together their case for or legislation. Join the list of those standing up to defend and assert their rights. As we prepare to celebrate another orbit around the sun and look forward to a new year, let's remember the lessons of our past year and use them to make the next year better. Let's not make the perfect the enemy of the good, by which I mean don't be put off by the fact that you cannot fix everything. Just fix something. And should we meet again at the beginning of another orbit, we can tell the tales of what we learned in 2025, what we're preparing to do in 2026. So that's it, just a brief remembrance of 2024 and maybe some ideas for 2025. That's really all I have for you today. Here at the Constitution Study, we're still working at making things better, at helping people read and study the Constitution, at helping them defend their rights, and most importantly, teaching people to be free. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to pledge to support the work that we're doing here. Go to constitutionstudy.com/shop and you can find a donate page. Donate to the cause. Make a one-time or a recurring donation. All of that money goes to help the Constitution Study survive, to create these episodes, to put on events so that people can learn the Constitution and defend their rights. Maybe buy a book or just enjoy one of our seminars. I'd love to see you at one of these events, and I'd love to have you invite me to come speak at one of your events. Most of all, take this time to remember the lessons of the past and use them as we go into the future. With Donald Trump as president, I expect 2025 to be an exciting year. Of course, the Chinese curse says, may you live in interesting times, and I think 2025 is going to be kind of interesting. That's also a lot of opportunities to do good. Maybe you'll join me on Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Just go to patriotmobile.com/constitution, find a plan that works for you, and join us in supporting organizations that protect our rights. Or check out the Patriots program at constitutionstudy.com/patriots. Or maybe go to the Miracle of America, constitutionstudy.com/1776 study guide. That's the numerals, 1776 study guide. These are all ways that you can educate yourself for the new year, that you can support the work that we're doing here, and do little things to make things better. Because if we all do the little things together, they do make a big difference. I look forward to seeing you in the next year. Hey, maybe bring some friends to the Constitution Study.
Love your neighbors and have a few good friends every day.